Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You're welcome. Man, such a good group. All right, so as you know, I'm Pastor Christine James. I mostly say that because it's going to be posted online. And my little umbrella area is congregational care, so that's what I've been asked to speak about today. So for the next 3 years, in case we haven't said it enough times, we are focusing on a piece of 1 Corinthians 13:13, which the whole thing reads, so now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. And so the theme is just the faith, hope, and love abide. So we'll be looking at faith this year, hope the next year, and then love the third year, which will then be our 200th anniversary. So in congregational care, I think this is a great theme of having faith, hope, and love, because I think they tie in so well. Because I think faith is why we're here and why we're together as a community and what unites us and bonds us together and what motivates us. Hope, I think that when we're giving care to one another, we have hope that it's going to positively affect one another, or else why would we be doing it? So I think hope is another key piece of congregational care. And then obviously, I feel like love doesn't need an explanation. I mean, we're always showing love when we're caring for one another and looking out for one another and delivering meals to one another and all of that. So my umbrella is I broke it down into these 3 categories. I am the one who goes through the friendship pads first and finds all our visitors and reaches out to them. And I keep a continuing dialogue with them if they want to engage. Keep checking in on them. And then when it seems about the time is right and they're ready, we go into the new membership stuff. And then I'm also the one that obviously does the pastoral care with our members. But one of the things I was thinking about when creating this presentation is it's easy just to see congregational care as that's what the associate pastor for congregational care does. However, I feel like all this is a team effort. So with the visitors and the new members, the membership and evangelism team is highly involved. They're the ones staffing the welcome table. They're the ones that are getting information on the people who are visiting so that I know more when I reach out. They're also the ones that are organizing the building tour and the explore, which we'll talk about in a bit, and exploring membership luncheons. And then with the members, I get to work with the Congregational Fellowship team to do different events throughout the year, and also work with the deacons. And not only is it these teams that I get to work with, but I feel like congregational care is something the whole congregation does. I like to think that the congregation will care for one another. So I was trying to think of some scripture passages for each of these areas. And for visitors, the first one that came to mind for me was Matthew 5, even though it's usually probably more of an outreach passage. I thought it applied to congregational care as well. And it reads, for I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you welcomed me. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you? I'm not normally quiet, but I just realized I was being very quiet. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
I turned them off.
Okay, thanks so much. All right, so like I said, I feel like this is very clearly an outreach passage, but I think it also works from a congregational care perspective, particularly with our visitors. And I was a stranger and you welcomed me, but more so also with the not more so, but also with the congregation, in that when we're sick or people need food, we're there. And I think this is one of the passages that drives me. When we're welcoming visitors in our congregation, are there any other scripture passages that come to mind? I found this trickier than I thought it would be. Does anyone else?
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
You see, another one. Anyway. said, let the children
Mm,
come in, and we're all children,
so let anyone come in our doors and let us welcome them and
whether we're an infant, a toddler, a 90-year-old, 69-year-old,
102.
yes.
Any other scripture passages that come to mind? You all are doing better than I did, but I appreciate it.
Where two or three are gathered together.
Like that. Is that congregational care in general, or is that for our visitors?
Either, both.
I think one is synonymous with the other in so many cases.
Can you speak louder, please?
Sheila.
Yeah, sorry. I do have I'm not a cheerleader, but I do have a loud voice. I said, I think they go hand in hand. It's not one another. I mean, outreach, congregational care, membership and evangelism. I think there's a lot of overlap. The way I would.
I would agree. I think if we're doing it right, it's pretty much the same thing, right? We should be treating our visitors the same way we're treating our members, so there should be a lot of overlap. So, in terms of pastoral care, if they give contact information, which if you've noticed when I do the announcements at the beginning of the service, I make sure to tell them to fill out the friendship pads and to please give me contact information. And if they do, I follow up with them. I try to keep a relationship with them if it's something they're open to, continue to check in. And also let them know more about the church. Some people just want to know generally who we are. Some people want to know our outreach opportunities. Some people want to know our Bible study opportunities. And so I'm kind of one of the first people, other than our membership and evangelism committee, that is helping them find this information. And so from that side, the community is involved in this, not just me, because the membership and evangelism team, as I said, are awesome at the welcome table, saying hi. Also, members of our membership and evangelism team are great at like picking out visitors and asking them who they are and things like that. And they collect contact information and start initial conversations and see what their interests are and things like that. But I think that this also goes beyond the membership and evangelism team. As I put up there, do you see someone doing the pews? Like, we can all say hello and be welcoming. And I think we're a pretty good congregation in that. But I think it's important to remember that it's not just the pastor or the membership and evangelism team that's caring for our visitors. It's a team group effort. And then for the new members, in terms of my role with that, I'm usually talking with them about becoming a member, seeing, what their experience with carrying church is, why they're interested in Third, why they might want to join Third, and telling them kind of the logistics and the process of that. And then I invite them to the building tour and the exploring membership classes. So the building tour is something new we're doing this year. Last year we did why Presbyterians are like that, which I more affectionately called why are Presbyterians like that. But it was why Presbyterians are like that, to learn more about the Presbyterian Church. But we found that there weren't too many people who were visitors and considering membership really interested in that. And so I, alongside the membership and evangelism team, decided that starting this year, we were going to do building tours instead. Not the great building tours that tell you all the little details about how the building was formed and things like that. I leave that up to the experts. However, we just walk around and see the space, see what different rooms are around, tell them what activities happen in each room. And it's myself and two members of the membership and evangelism team, as well as anyone who's been visiting and wants to join us. And we found that it was just this great bonding experience. The people who are on the membership and evangelism team get to share their experience with the church. The visitors get to share their questions and a little bit about themselves. And so while I like to say they learned about the church, I think, and the building, I think they also really learned about each other, maybe more learned about each other, and now have faces to say hi to in the pews, which I think was a very beautiful thing. So the membership and evangelism team helps with that. Our session meets our new members and talks to them a bit. But again, this is a communal effort, I think. We can all welcome the new members. I mean, if you come after the worship service to welcome the new members, you get cake out of it too, usually. But I think it's just a beautiful thing, say hi, welcome, we're glad you've been part of our, you're now part of our congregation. And share a little bit about why we love third so much. So again, this congregational care thing is under me, but I think it's something we all do.
Christine.
Yes.
I know this would be speaking to the choir in this room, but I just want to make sure everybody understands that the people who are greeting and ushering are also always on the look for people that they don't recognize and trying to reach out and connect with them and encourage them to participate in all these other things. It's uncomfortable for some people to sit next to someone and say, oh, I don't know them, or I don't remember their name. It's easy for a person greeting or ushering to say, hi, how are you? I'm only on the 4th week or whatever. It's easy to connect with people that way. And that's one of my favorite parts about that job. And if anybody wants to be a part of that group, I know most of us already are in this room. I wish I was speaking to 50 people, but it's often the first place that people come and see. And I remember vividly, I welcomed Rebecca Ferguson once, her first time in the first door, the first time she was here after her China meeting. And then, boom, she's a pastor. You never know. I'm sure it wasn't due to that, but making it a warm, welcoming place is what we all want to do. And we're on that team to do that. So we're out there cheerleading too.
But that's a great point. You never know who you're talking to.
Right.
You don't know what they're going through. You don't know if you just made their day by saying hello because they were having this horrible day and you went to church for support and you just helped them with that. Eleanor.
Yeah, and I'll go expand on that and say we need to get over our discomfort with not sure whether we've met these people before.
Oh, I'm getting over that quickly.
Over. Will say, I don't know if I've met you before, but.
Yeah, and most people feel the same way and are pretty forgiving about it.
Yeah, and so that would be something to teaching us to be okay with. So my memory, I don't always remember everything.
Yeah. I'm still using the I'm new card. So I'll make myself like, I'm sorry if we've already met, but I'm still meeting everyone.
She
So
said
when
another
you-
6 months.
I know.
Say, I think I might. Years ago, anyway.
Never get over that.
Right.
No, no, I mean, to that point, Eleanor, probably a month and a half ago, when I think I was greeting, maybe I was greeting and ushering. And this couple came in and I said, no, I don't think that I've met you. Are you visiting with us today? And they said, oh, we know, we've been longtime members. I said, oh, I'm so sorry, I've only been here, I don't even remember if it's 8 or 9 years. But this is who I am, what's your name? And we've connected a few times. She said, well, I'm more frequent than my husband. I said, oh, that sounds familiar to me. The other thing I want to mention is some of the most blessed mornings that I have had since coming back from Florida here in church is the mornings that I seek out a stranger, somebody that I don't know, somebody that I'm pretty sure is visiting for the first time. And I either invite them to come and sit with me, or I go sit with them. And I make sure I get their contact information, their phone number, their email address, and I always follow up with a text message and an email. That is such an easy thing to do. Well, maybe not for some people, but people that have certain personalities, we should be called to do that.
Yeah, I agree. And some of my favorite emails are the emails that I get that are like, oh, I sat next to this person in the pew and then we had coffee. Or I sat next to this person in the pew and they want to become a member. Isn't that great? I'm one person, and as established, there are a lot of you and a lot of names and a lot of faces. And so everyone helping together in on this is a beautiful thing. Do we have any stories of when people started attending here? Like, were people super welcoming? Were there certain things people did that you found drew you into third?
Okay, so I think it was 8 years ago, November 9th, I joined. The morning that I was joining the church, a woman who I had recognized, but I hadn't met, came up to me out there in the hallway, and she said, Sheila, I want to talk to you after worship. I know you're joining the church. No, thanks. I have something that I think you need to do. But really, let's talk after church. It was Rose Pepper.
Okay,
And she threw me into the Christmas basket ministry, and I did that for a few years until we started to spend more time in Florida. And gone the primaries for Christmas basket ministry, collecting money and giving out lists. And that was such a huge gift. We didn't know each other. How did she know but whatever.
Where you were called or interested in. There's this novel concept called acting too,
Yeah,
where you can ask if people are interested and try and help them find their.
like I just
Like,
asked Pam if she wouldn't come back on membership and evangelism. Anybody in the room's welcome. We need some more members.
that is true. Membership and evangelism is looking for new members. And it is wonderful, and it is just this great opportunity we're gonna have lunch after worship for one of our exploring membership lunches. You get to meet the people who are considering becoming new members. You get to hear a little bit about their faith and their story. It is a wonderful committee to be on. Thanks for the segue into the book. But any other stories about how people felt welcomed and ways that they felt cared for, things people did? Was it just people coming up and saying hi to you?
I can tell you that the first time I came here, my husband at the time was early to middle stage Alzheimer's, a retired minister.
I'm gonna pause for 1 second. Just so you know, if you don't know, we're being recorded and this is gonna be put on YouTube, so just keeping that in mind. Okay.
Fine.
I just wanna make sure you're not surprised by it.
And we were not welcome. The guy at the door, just said, "Good morning." That was it. And I learned a very valuable lesson in the fact that we predominantly were here for the music because it was outstanding. And as we liked the music and we came back the second time, it was a whole different ballgame. He was a terrible singer, my husband was. You know, I think ministers are sometimes. And it was really great because then we were involved in that particular ministry and everybody found out that he was a retired minister and people came. So this is exceedingly important that we greet people and that we build friendships. And for years, we just came, but then it happened. So I fully encourage people, and I'm not here as much as I would like to be. I can't physically do it, but it is something so important that even if you just say hello to them and somebody else comes up and speaks to them, you've got to do that. There's so many people that are living in my community that don't go to a church. We don't drive, so we depend on people. And that's part of what I think the committee can do is see who needs rides, how we can encourage people to come, listen to the gorgeous music, and be a friend to know somebody, even if it's just the hello and we're glad to see you. And again, the next week or the next month that they come, remember their names. I doubt very seriously that many people would know who I am. Many of the other side, so to speak, would know. And the people that I live with, they know. But we need to be more encouraging we need to profess what we preach.
Talk is cheap unless you,
Pick up that phone if you can. For years, I had no, contact with anyone. Nobody ever called. Nobody ever said, do you need some help? I happened to run into somebody at, of all places, Walmart, and said, I'm only here for 30 minutes, but I can speak to you. I would love to talk to you. And that's when I really realized where my friends were. And you don't have to like Walmart.
no, I want to just share a story that goes back 30 years. When there was really a crisis going on at 12 Corners Presbyterian Church, this is the church that my husband was raised and baptized in. We got married in that church 48 years ago. Our children were baptized, they were raised until our daughter was 14, and there was a whole, that's another story. So we began to look for other churches. And this was the first church that we decided to come. And my husband loved it because it was so big and could sit in a few, unassuming. I was not comfortable. And I've told many people this story, and I'm not ashamed or afraid to say it. The culture here has changed. Thank you, Lord.
Yeah.
It was different, so different. I felt like I was being judged by the people in the pews. Nobody spoke to us. No one. And I felt like I walked in, and I don't have love. But I walked in and I felt like everybody was looking from my head to my feet to see what I was wearing, what my outfit looked like, what my shoes looked like. That was 1,000% turn on for me. My husband's like, oh, let's go there. Let's join that church. No, honey, not for me right now. So I went back to my Methodist roots for 23 years and did the same thing that I've been doing here for 8 years, worshiping, engaging, participating. And when it came time to journey in a different direction, because of my beliefs and some of the beliefs at that point within the Methodist Church, particularly towards inclusivity and gay, lesbian, transgender, I struggled with that. And I said, I'm in a different path. And I came here and I felt so in love with this church, with the people that were embracing new people. I felt so welcome. That's my story.
Are you sticking to it?
And I'm sticking to it.
Well, I appreciate your story, and I think that a lot of us probably have stories like that. I feel like each new church I've gone to, because there has been several given my career path, I went and looked at different churches that I wanted to intern at and things like that. But that first impression means a lot. And it depends on where someone is in their story. So I remember when I was in graduate school and I was just looking for a church and I was all nervous about it. Like I went in, the greeter saw me, knew me a little bit, and then I slid into the back pew and ran after the service because that's what I was wanting at that time. And then I got more comfortable and got to know more people and quickly got integrated into that church. But also the church that I ended up interning at, I had a similar experience where I went in thinking that's where I wanted to intern, all excited, sat there and no one spoke to me. And I was like, cool. And then the next Sunday I was like, I really like this church. I really want to give it another chance. And I came in and another seminary student found me and was like, you're in seminary, you're at Princeton Theological Seminary. I was like, I am. And she buddied up to me and it was all good from there. Those experiences matter, those interactions matter, saying hi to each other matter. It is wonderful and great, and one of our main purposes to come here and worship. But we don't do it isolated, we do it with one another. And I think that's important. And I appreciate all of your stories and all of your points. it's just so much of a richer experience, and also we're able to live out our faith caring for each other if we know one another. Which gets into the members and our congregation. So for this one, I thought of in everything do to others as you would have them do to you. Because I feel like we all need care, and we all have times in our lives where we struggle, and so it's important to care for others when they're going through times. In terms of congregational care for the people in our pews, are there any other scripture readings? I have high standards because you were really great on the visitors question.
Well, one of my favorites, period, in the whole Bible is, I am the vine and you are the branches. And while it doesn't speak directly to this particular thing, it speaks to the fact that we are the face and the hands of God in the world. And we're connected. And so we are the ones to go out and connect with others. So I love that. Stained glass window in the sanctuary and look at it all the time. And remember.
We're all the branches connected to the vine of God, and so we're also in that connected to one another. Like, any other ones?
I don't think this is a particular passage, but when we meet someone new, I feel like we are the light. We're the light of Christ. I look for God's face in each face of every new person that I meet. And often you find it. I think being more intentional about walking this true walk as a Christian can be very fulfilling, very rewarding, and very enlightening.
There's love your neighbor as yourself, which I thought more about in recent years. And in order to do that, you have to love yourself and realize that we're all beloved, like ourselves included, and everyone else around us are beloved children of God, and we should show love to everyone. Any others?
Didn't we have a lectionary a couple weeks ago about the early church? One of the epistles and talked about everyone eating together in common and sharing things. And that's one that resonated with me. And one of the sort of takeaways that I just got from this stewardship conference was we also have to be comfortable with receiving as well as giving. That, oh, I don't really need anything, that we feel better about ourselves or have a sense of power if I'm helping you, but to be able to receive is also important.
Now, learning how to receive grace.
Yes.
And being gracious, accepting.
I love that you made that point for me. It was something I planned to get into later. But yeah, it is important to allow others to take care of you because you're giving them the privilege of that, and also we're all deserving of being cared for. So, which gets into my first point on my part of pastoral care. Pastoral care includes the home visits and the hospital visits, but that's not all it is. Anyone can receive pastoral care. If you ever want to chat, if you want to go get coffee or lunch with me, like anyone can receive pastoral care. It doesn't have to be like, oh, Christine's calling, she must think I'm dying. No, she doesn't. She just wants to get to know you and have a bond and a relationship. And it's okay to receive that. And I'm hoping that we can change the culture a little bit because it is such a broader culture that we want to give, we want to help, we want to be there for someone else, but I'm fine. And that's okay, but we're not always fine. And even if we are fine, we can use other people and those spiritual partners on the journey. And then another one of my large pieces of my position, which is not as happy as doing funerals, but for me, I do have an appreciation for funerals because it gives me a chance to get to know the family. Get to know the family when they're in this very vulnerable time where they can't even think straight most of the time. They don't know what foot to put in front of the other, and I'm able to walk alongside them. All of us on the pastoral staff are still doing funerals, but especially if they don't have a connection to any of the three of us, I'm usually the one doing most of the funerals. And that is both an honor and a privilege that I see very much as part of the pastoral care. Not only in honor and memory of the person who is deceased, but also as a way to care for the family and those who love the person. So what can we all do for caring for all of the members and all of our community? So Congregational Fellowship is a team that does, I'm gonna get this wrong, I think the big lunch. And they, I think, provide ice cream they do the rally date and they do ice cream for the big lunch. Thank you for the nods, I appreciate it. But I see that as engaging the community and serving the community and giving us these opportunities to spend time with one another. The deacons also are great. I put Coffee with Christine under them and not the pastoral care side intentionally because yes, it has my name in the title. Yes, come have coffee with Christine. I will be there. But it's turned into so much more. The people that come are often, well, we were joking before more people got here when there was only a couple of people here that it was, Christine's core fan club, the ones who showed up, which I appreciate all of you and do consider you part of my fan club, whether you want to be or not. But that was kind of what was happening with the coffees with Christine, was a lot of people who knew me were coming in support as opposed to people who didn't know me, which was fine. But the consequence was they didn't know one another. And so instead of becoming coffee with Christine, it became like a roundtable conversation where we got to know each other better, which was just a beautiful thing. And what came out of the first one, which was hosted by our Silver Parish, was the deacons in that parish were like, this is great. How wonderful. We should have more opportunities to bond with one another. So they started to do these walks. They did one in September and they're going to do a second one in October. The one in September went really well. I think we had like 5 to 7 people come. It was wonderful. We got to talk, we got to walk. People really got to engage with one another. There was people that didn't really know each other. So I would encourage you, if you're at all interested, to join us on October 27th from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. We'll be walking around Mount Hope Cemetery. And I realize it's Mount Hope Cemetery and that's very vague. Where we are meeting, I think I've been told, but I don't remember. So if you want to join us, reach out to me and I'll confirm where exactly in Mount Hope Cemetery we're meeting, but it's not for people who are like, you don't have to like run around the cemetery, like we just casually stroll and it's a good time, are more concerned about conversation than getting anywhere and seeing the beauty and creation that God has provided around us. And so I ended this part with, who is the person you see every Sunday? Because I've heard so many times, and I've experienced myself, you can see someone every Sunday in a pew, maybe they sit in the pew behind you or in front of you or next to you, and not really know them, which is a shame. And I think that we're called to be more of a community than that. You could go get a cup of coffee, you could just strike up a conversation, you could ask someone what's new in their life. I think we keep coming back to this theme that us being a united community, supporting each other, loving one another, knowing each other is such a great thing. And with that, I thank you for all of your stories you've shared. I thank you for being here. I thank you for all you do. I do feel like I'm preaching to the choir, looking who's here, and think that you all are great, welcoming people. But here we are anyways. And thank you for just all you do. And I'm so grateful to be here. In my last call, I was a solo pastor, so I felt like I had to do everything. And I was kind of sad that I needed to spend more time doing the pastoral care aspect. So when this job came to be, it was like a dream. I get to focus on pastoral care, and I love being able to do that and working with you all. And anything else we want to talk about?
Does everybody that's here have a name yet? Have you had a name yet made? You have a name?
No.
No, no, we're going to get new one.
I hope so. I don't have any idea where mine went.
It probably got
She's
lost in
moved.
the move.
Yeah,
We can correct it.
Okay.
Do you have an impact? That is not where it's supposed to be. Yes, I do. I keep mine in the console along with my 2 granddaughters.
So we have a couple,
Home and it's-
Yeah, and I've seen Patricia. Is there more than just that?
no, but she's delighted to know that she can go walking in Mount Hope Cemetery.
Oh, I'm sorry, Patricia. I wasn't noticing the chat, but it looks like when we were talking about how you felt welcome, you felt that Thursday Voices welcomed you, which is a beautiful thing. I love when small groups can do that. My group in Rochester.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Christine does a great job at Thursday Voices. She's really good at it, so I just would invite you all to come. But she just finished up a month, so I guess it would probably be maybe December that she comes back. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Um,
it'll be December.
Ted starts this week
And
for a month. So
he and Rebecca do great too, and there's always one of us there.
the one thing about Christine is she can really follow up when people bring up something. She just has a real gift in being able to pull out more about what somebody says. So I'm glad she's with us.
Aw,
Nice.
thank
Yeah.
you, Patricia. I'm glad you're with us too.
Oh,
And there's a
see,
voice- and I
she
can-
just did it just now. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. That was very sweet of you. Anything else you want to talk about? In terms of, congregational care and things I might have missed that you think are important, or any final thoughts?
I'm curious as to whether you see patterns in visitation, percentages of people who want to be followed up with, or is there a seasonal ebb and flow of visitors? Just curious how that looks from your perspective.
In terms of me visiting people?
Right.
So one of the things that shocked me at first was sometimes how shocked people were that I came and visited them. They're like, "Oh, you're coming to visit me?" And again, it was kind of there's nothing wrong. And I was like, that's fine. So I'm hoping that's kind of shifting a little bit, this reception to pastoral care, and knowing that nothing major has to be wrong. Anything that's going on counts, and even if it's just for me to get to know you, I find that very helpful. Especially in a kind of not so happy way to look at it, but still pertinent. If something were to happen, I'd rather show up to the hospital room already knowing you. So not only do I just want to get to know you, but it's beneficial in the long run, for me to know more people. Also, friends and groups.
I was thinking of visitors to worship,
Oh.
different kind of visitor. But
Oh.
thank you for the other answer too. Yeah.
So were there trends in, how it ebbs and flows with visitors and worship?
Sometimes I look around and think, okay, I know I at least recognize every face in this room. No visitors today, but maybe that's not the case.
Yeah, it definitely waves. We almost always have visitors, which is always wonderful, that we always have at least a couple. Some of the visitors might not be as obvious because a lot of our visitors, have been visiting for a while. They just haven't become members of the church yet. I think it does ebb and flow a lot. I think there are certain Sundays where we have a ton. Some of the obvious ones like Easter and things like that.
But even communion Sundays.
I think there's a larger attendance probably, not maybe more visitors, but I'm not sure the visitors know it's a community Sunday. It's not their first
Unless
time.
they've been here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not sure. That's a wonderful research study that I think we're gonna be having for.
I will just offer a negative example of being a church shopper. And I went to another church wanting to do as you I just want to slide in, be a fly on the wall and see this. And as part of their service, they said, "Do we have any visitors here today? Will all visitors stand up?" And I think there were maybe 2 of us, and everyone's head whipped around. I thought I wanted to be invisible till I sort of got my sense. So it made me feel spotlighted rather than welcomed. And I think perhaps, at least for my personality, I would rather have somebody sitting near me or a greeter speak to me rather than be you, visitor in row number 3. I felt very obvious and not in a welcomed way in that setup.
Yeah, that'd be pretty uncomfortable for me as well. I'm surprised they did that. Pam.
I'll tell you a funny story too. We were living in, I think this was Boston, and I had visited a church and signed in as a visitor. And the minister did a phone call, and I was in my bathing suit in the backyard, and I was mortified. He come up and said, "Whoa," and I think, to be honest, he was mortified. But what an embarrassing moment, and I did not enjoy that. It just was. I thought, oh boy, minister should call first.
Yeah, cold calls are meant for the telephone. Not in person, unless it's like, the only time I'll do that is if it's like a residential living facility and things like that, and I'm not sure the person has a phone. But yeah.
Oh, there was Cleveland. Oh, man.
Yeah, and I think that it takes a lot of just being intuitive too. So like sometimes I'll see a visitor and I'll really want to talk to them. And they'll be like, hi, as they're turning away from me, and I'll be like, have a nice day. And so sometimes you just have to read people, because sometimes people just want to be a fly on the wall. I've done it. I think lots of people have done it, and so they get more comfortable. And maybe that's having faith and hope too, is that even if a bunch of people don't talk to them, if they felt comfortable just sitting there in the pew by themselves, they'll keep coming back. And there's having faith and hope in that too. You both raised your hands at the same time. Can I go right first and then?
Christine, you've had, experience on size church. So I'm curious how the size of the church or the culture of the church differs. What have you noticed about third that makes it more or less welcoming?
So it's a very different culture depending on the size. So if you have like a small church, pretty much everyone knows each other. So the visitors, they stand out to you immediately, for better or for worse. Whereas here we have to be a little more intentional because it's such a large congregation, we don't necessarily know all the faces. So it can be harder to spot visitors. I'm finding that very hard now. In a smaller church, I can get to know all the people real quick and be good at it. But here I'm like, I don't even know if I've met you, let alone if you're a member or visitor, can you please refresh my memory. So that's one difference. Another difference in terms of welcoming visitors. Is that the question?
Yeah, I was thinking specifically about that.
Yeah,
There are also
but it can be a
other very big
congregational.
people can come joining committees or people who are called and being engaged versus just visitors, staying visitors for years.
Yeah, and in a congregational care perspective, when you have a smaller congregation, pretty much like during the prayers and joys and concerns, for example, I can call on people and they can share things that are very personal to each other. So people know personal things that are going on with one another. Here we can't do that because there's so many of us. So I think it requires more intentionality. We have to be intentional about getting to know each other, intentional about being aware of what's going on in each other's lives, knowing when someone's in the hospital needs things like that. That's not exactly what you asked, but it felt like a good point.
Speaking of welcoming visitors, I have to go be an usher so I can welcome visitors.
Do you
So
want to shut us down?
I can
Because
shut us
it's
down before I go.
10 o'clock, and I have to go down and check on our exploring membership people and make sure they're okay. Because we have an exploring membership watch after worship.